I am so excited to have this conversation because I'm a part of this summit. And, there's so much confusion around this time period of life for women and what's happening, what's out there, what's safe, what's not, what do I need to know? I'm so glad you took it upon yourself to have the Wisdom of Menopause Summit and help sort of women navigate this. So thank you for joining me on Menopause Mastery.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it was so exciting that you said yes. I so appreciate it. The event is the New Science and Wisdom of Menopause Summit, and I have so this is my 11th summit. I've asked all of the usual suspects, as well as a lot of people who my audience and the world doesn't know, because they've been grinding in their clinics, labs, practices, helping women navigate this time. And it was going to be just the science of menopause. And then I was like, no, there's new science. And then it was like, you know what? Let's balance it also out with some wisdom. So it's about 50 plus master classes. And then I think it's actually 60. And then it's about 10 very specific interviews just to cover the wisdom part. It's financial planning. It's how to care for your older relatives in assisted living, etc. It is also one of my very favorite life coaches, Barbara Barna Abel, talking about, are you asking yourself the right questions about what you're going to be doing in this chapter of life? And then my other sister, because the one's an expert in elder care, the other one is an avid traveler. These are both my older sisters. And we're going to be talking about safety and solo travel, bucket list, and all of that. So that's kind of the wisdom. And then, holy smokes, the science. I have a disclaimer on yours that says advanced.
Yeah. For everybody that listens to me, you know how I am. I cover two really intensely. You want to watch masterclasses, but they are scientific, and I'm super excited to be able to share that. And I was glad you gave me those two opportunities because that means a lot that I get to share really a big part of my research that I spent years digging around and digging into. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh, you did a great job. So a masterclass, so people always are like, masterclass, okay, that's an overused term, and I don't know how to change it right now, but it's a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation. Without me, it's just like that person, like you, going and just like boom, boom, clinical pearl, research. Everyone was asked to do at least 3 citations or references to studies. Of course, you have a bazillion. And also, after you and I started talking, I'm like, okay, I think you need 2. So one is not going to be enough to contain you in any way, shape, or form. So you're one of the few that has 2. So
Yeah.
anyway, I loved what you talked about the genetics and hormones and pathways and your menopausal microbiome. Even if everyone listens to it and is not a total nerd out moment, for those of you who are, you're gonna be like, yeah, bring it on, Betty. But for the rest of you, or like even just getting started with this whole idea, I think it's essential to stretch our brains further than what we're thinking about normally, because it's a bigger picture conversation, and it gives you a lot of context to actually backward engineer into our biological hormones right for you, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I kind of hope that at least, I mean, generally speaking, I'm usually pretty good at funny, if not
Oh,
gross
you did a great
and
job. Yeah.
hilarious analogies as to what this stuff is. So like I said, I'm super excited that I get to share my nerdiness on screen with your participants, and it's so exciting. One of the things that I think is so important, and as a matter of fact, I had a fellow friend of mine have the conversation about elder care and financial planning, as somebody whose mother had a heart attack and stroke 18 months ago, and my parents, like, I got to the point, you can even ask my husband, every day both of them would be like, let me show you where the paperwork, it's like they belabored all of this stuff. And even though they had planned and planned and planned, it is an overwhelming amount of work. And it almost always falls to women in this age group. And it's things that like, believe me, I hate talking that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. But oh my God, if you're ill prepared, it is overwhelming. And so I'm excited that you added that wisdom side, because it's, yeah, elder care, I'm knee deep in that, and in financial care and all that. It's another full-time job. So I'm so excited. So I wanted to talk a little bit. So you've obviously done summits. I think you're a lot like most of us in this age group, where I think you came to this arena, functional medicine, because of your own health.
Absolutely. So I'm actually a healer by nature in that I had a yoga studio for 10 years. My mother back in the day and I, before I could even drive, we were into food combining. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
With your carbs, with your proteins, melon, eat it alone or leave it alone. So when I was 14, I started my sort of holistic health journey. My father was from India. My mother was interested holistically in health. She was Irish and Welsh and, upstate New York. So dad was like, "Yeah, kids, you do whatever you want. I'm in." And my mom was curious by nature. And so fast forward, oh, hey, Kat. Hey, Petunia. I was doing pretty well, but in college at the University of Florida, I started with, during the week, I was absolutely strict. I would drink, 2 quarts of water a day. I was like walking around with one of those gallon jugs before it was cool. Just saying I'm trendsetter. That's all. And I was really strict with the food. They even gave me a discount at the sorority house that I lived in. And then on the weekends, I just let it all hang out and was absolutely a hot mess. But fast forward, got into speaking, and I traveled around the North America and the United States after college as a speaker. So every night I was in a hotel 2 weeks out of every month. And every night, like when we get into their car to commute, I was commuting by airplane. So the next town to do the next conference day, and I got very ill. These hotels were not fancy pants hotels. These were like, Ramadas, that kind of thing. And nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying it was not the Ritz. And I was really very ill. I was a vegetarian. I still am. There isn't a lot of food in the 90s on the road. One day I realized I had a 1.5 foot of 6-inch Subway sandwiches in my gut. I mean, it was dark times. It was dark. My hair was falling out. I got a wart, the first one ever. I was not doing well. I know there weren't a lot of resources on the road to actually live a healthier lifestyle at that point. And then I got a job at a television station where I worked for over 20 years. Lo and behold, years later, that's my cat jumping, I realized that the building had mold. But while I was there and slowly but surely getting more and more sick over those years, I had also worked the overnights for 6 years. That's not gonna help me. I got very dependent on Benadryl to sleep during the day, understandably. That's not gonna help me. So, it was kind of a perfect storm, and I'd had gut issues all my life since I was 5. It turns out I had SIBO. I figured that out in the midst of all of this. I was a mold denier, so I wasn't paying attention to mold at the time. But I basically started a platform of SIBO SOS, started teaching people about IBS and SIBO. That was my first summit. Then I did the SIBO SOS summit too. Then I did the gut microbiome summit. And then I was like, I'm in, this is working. I love it. People are getting helped all over the world, millions of views. And I was, okay, next I'm going to do biological dentistry because I'm passionate about it. And that was fascinating. Then I'm going to do the lymphatic rescue summit because my mother had lymphoma. And then I did the fascia summit with with my co-host and our friend Kelly Kennedy, the lymph queen, and so on and so on. And then I was like, I actually took a break last year because I was like, what's my next topic? Oh, I did the liver gallbladder too because I had a gallstone. I mean, it was like, what's up with me? Let's do a summit on it, people. Okay, yeah. And then I was like, I went quiet for a minute, and I was like, I feel it. I just don't know what it is yet. And then it was like, zoink, it's menopause, sister. I'm like, duh. And, my perimenopause was very confusing. I was told, do the least amount of estrogen ever. Don't careful, and I wasn't tested. It was just like there was like the one nurse practitioner at the the gyno's office, who was like, natural. And she was like, sir, well, here's a patch, here's some cream. Good luck. See ya in a year. And then, so I just really backed off a lot of it because I was so scared of it. And then I was like, wait a minute. Now I'm in full menopause. I see all this emerging science. I am a nerd, not like you are, but good for me. And I realized that, okay, estrogen's my friend. Progesterone in the right ratio is my friend. I wish my mother had had all of this information. I remember I was born when she was almost 40. My father was 69. So happy surprise anniversary, kids. And I remember being on a bus with her for a field trip. She was like the parent for the field trip. And she was on the front seat of the bus and she was weeping. Now, my mother was a phenomenal, dynamic, amazing human being who had not a lot of reason to weep. That doesn't mean anything, but it was like an episode. I also remember having hot flashes. Now, I'm a little kid. I remember that all these years later, she was stressed and confused. And that fed into all this. Plus, I have older sisters that are 8 and 9 years older than I am. So it just was like, oh, well, this is obvious. Let's get the word out about all of this and reduce confusion, because there is confusion and there are answers.
Yeah. No,
Thanks.
it's
Like you.
yeah, it's because I love to say it this way, like, we don't get a pass on menopause. You can't avoid it. It is going to happen. Like, this isn't it, yes, it is natural, but living 30 to 35 years afterwards is not natural. And all of those symptoms that we experience that most women are unaware of, I kind of took it for granted that at least women understood that some of the other things like the insomnia, the brain fog, the memory issues, the weight gain around the middle, the lack of libido, that was part of the picture. But it became really abundantly clear to me, even 20 years ago when we started our practice, that women were really confused that was even what's happening, because we all thought that happens at 50, right? Not that it was happening, because mine started at 39. And like you were already immersed and you had access to experts in healthcare, particularly functional medicine. I own a clinic and I have access. I can pick up the phone and talk to people from all over. And, but my 40s weren't great because I also had that overbearing message. Estrogen isn't bad. We do bioidentical, but you only need enough, right? And if you were estrogen dominant, which you and I have had this conversation, we definitely early on had those symptoms of excess estrogen because of where we are in that time period and the hormone changes of the loss of progesterone that occur in all women because of fertility changes, but some people more dramatically than others, that you then get to the point where you probably need it, but you're terrified to have it because you were sure you had too much. And for me, when, at 55 now, and when I went back at 48 to go back to school to really understand this mechanism and really dig in and then contribute to the science, I was like, oh my God, I probably should have been on estrogen
Right?
at 42 rather than 49 after everything had died out. And then it was very clear to me that this is the hill I'm dying on, and that all women need to have, really well-trained functional medicine, but also menopause method trained practitioners that really understand it. Because routinely we hear every day on our telemedicine clinic and in our clinic in Dallas, women will get told by functional practitioners. One told me that you need to do your diet and your lifestyle and your exercise, then you'll earn your hormones. Who the fuck do you think you are? Like, I am sorry, but you need hormones in order to do the diet, the lifestyle, and the exercise. Like, what? Or, that you don't need much and you need the lowest possible dose. You need to stay there at the lowest possible dose and without any real science to back it up, right? And so I was like, gosh, if I'm hearing that every day, and I'm out here screaming from the mountaintops, there's so many women that need this help, just so many, and practitioners.
Right.
I would say my classes are advanced classes for people who want to understand how your hormones work and all that other stuff, but also practitioners to really deeply understand our natural hormones are not going to kill us.
Are you tired of feeling constantly fatigued, overwhelmed by stress, or struggling with energy crashes? So I want to help you reclaim that vitality with my Metabolic Blueprint 28-day adrenal health program. Here's what you're going to get: natural energy boost, stress reduction, balanced blood sugar, enhanced mental clarity, and a very, very good start on rebalancing your adrenal function to help with hormone balancing. Here's what's included. There are 3 nutritional products: Energy Boost Mastery, Stress Less Mastery, and Blood Sugar Mastery. These 3 products synergistically help modulate your stress response, improve blood sugar control, and induce relaxation. You'll also get access to my Metabolic Blueprint app that includes personalized health goals, tracking, and daily wellness and guided nutrition through my Metabolic Blueprint 28-day adrenal program. And for a limited time, I don't normally do this, I am going to also have 3 masterclasses with anybody who takes the 28-day program. And we're going to have live Q&As so we can talk about hormones. You get the entire adrenal health program, the 3 masterclasses, and the supplements for $180. Join us today, because if you do, you'll be registered before the January 20th, 2025 start date. And so all you got to do is go to the link in the show notes, metabolicblueprint.com, hormone, adrenal health program, and click the link and you can register and you will get all of those bennies. And again, it's only $180. And I look forward to seeing you January 20th.
Listen, every practitioner, every patient, every woman who comes to the New Science and Wisdom of Menopause Summit, watch Betty Murray's 2 classes. I'm so sorry. I had a noise there because we're launching it and my team is like working 24 hours right now. I want to read to you something I got today from a girlfriend who I sent the little video to, going, hey, we started, it's open. We're, blah, blah. It says, so I sent it to her and she says, good morning. I will check this out. I've got a little into the perimenopause rabbit hole this year after feeling completely unaware prior. I'm like, right? ? It's a lot. And like, this would have been so good to know beforehand. I write, right? ? And my gyno doc was telling me nothing when I was like, hey, is this normal? But when finally got myself to my GP, he helped me realize a lot of HRT, etc., but still so much more to learn, adjust, but gets overwhelming. And I say to her, totally. And you're lucky that your GP knew what the heck they were doing. OBGYNs are awesome for catching babies and many, many things. I love my GYN and etc. However, they're not all menopause providers. Okay.
Right.
That's a term we all need to be having on the tip of the tongue. It's extremely frustrating. She goes, I know, I'm so lucky he helped me. Yep. And it's what became a mega practice and just cranking up paps and babies. I'll always love for being my OB, but learning not always right fit forever. I'm not slamming anybody. I'm just saying it is something that, look, if you're a football player, it's so cute that I'm making a sports analogy, and someone says,
I'm amused by it.
okay, yeah, right. Someone says to you like, hey, go play pickleball with, my auntie, and you're like, damn, she's good. That's because that's not your skill set. Like, auntie's not running, passes with you on the football field. It's just different. So what we're trying to do is to educate as many people as possible, cross-pollinate patients to help their practitioners to help their patients, and advocate for yourself. And as practitioners, you need to advocate for yourselves too, because you need to get the education you need. And it is emerging more and more professional education with CEs, CMEs, et cetera. But there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, there is. It's funny because there was an article that came out a couple months ago about the rampant overprescribing of hormones, because we're finally talking about it again. And it was interesting. So, of course, you know me, I had to dig through the literature. I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. So hormone replacement therapy in the form of Premarin. So let's go ahead and qualify that. An oral estrogen that has 13 different estrogens in it that's made from horse pee, right? That's what Premarin is. That was standard of care. So that was standard of care from the 60s all the way until 2002. And actually, it was the most prescribed medication, even outdid statin drugs until 2002 in most countries. So 40 to 70% of women who were going through menopause at that time were put on hormones. And there was never a question about safety. There was never a question. All the literature, all the research showed that it was protective, right? And Abrams Blumingsburg, the Estrogen Matters, absolutely goes through all of that. But the Women's Health Initiative comes out. We withdraw women from that. And then the simple fact is gynecology is a surgical specialty, just like gastroenterology, just like cardiology or cardiovascular surgeons. They get relegated to even hormones at birth control because they happen to manage the baby delivery process. So
Right.
they're surgeons first. And, even gynecology practice specifications for schools, less than 20% actually have any training on menopause. And so the idea is that, yes, women were on these for decades. And less than 4, depends on the study you look at, 4 to 7% of women today are actually appropriately treated with any kind of hormone replacement. And there's 50 million women in menopause today in the United States alone.
Yikes.
Ladies, we make up more than a quarter of the entire population. If you're not happy with stuff, we got the power because we got money, we got time, and we've got wisdom, and we got chick anger, which I'm all ready to harness, right? But that's the reality is it's not rampant. Like, it's not like some passing fancy. We really
No.
actually need it, and we need women to understand where they are in that process and what their health is doing.
Exactly. And you need to get strong and not be thinking about just being thin. You need to be thinking about it's pain in the butt. Look, getting old is not for, enjoy, right? But it's not for the weak, and yet we're all going to go through it if we're lucky enough. So what can we do? Even small things, right? Increase your protein intake. And it's easy to say diet and exercise, but it's the right kind of diet. It's the right kind of exercise. There's discernment that needs to happen. There is don't fall, because if you break a hip, you are not going to do as well. Studies show also the fact that a third of women in menopause are going to lose a tooth. What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good one. Eyesight, hearing, your balance is essential. There's obviously libido, hello, and just the whole microbiome of the vagina, of the gut, it's of the mouth. We are taking a very holistic approach. We are educating. I absolutely have a session in the summit about how to keep your teeth with Barbara Tritz, who is a holistic, do you know her? She's amazing. She is a biological oral hygienist who is phenomenal. And I actually plucked that. That's the only one I've plucked from another one of my summits, the Biological Dentistry Summit. I was like, there is no way I'm not putting this in here, because every person on the planet needs to see this. And over half, it's at least 30 to 50%, I've heard more, of adults have periodontal disease. So when you're brushing your teeth and you have a little redness, a little bleeding, that's not normal, by the way. That is not normal. We have red light therapy. We're talking about ozone, UTIs, BV, the penis disease.
Erectile dysfunction. I love that. Can we use that from here on forward?
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you with penis disease.
Penis disease. I'm changing it from ED to PD.
Erectile dysfunction, of which we have like 17 medications for, mind you.
Okay, I'm sorry. So one of my friends said, this was interesting, Siobhan, imagine if every woman on the planet felt well and wasn't marginalized in any age, but certainly in this phase, because we're ageist in this world, in this country, I'll say, because in other countries they take care of their elders in a very different way. They're ageist. There's a lot of things culturally that are tough for this phase, and imagine if they were kick butt, if they felt great, if they were like, you know what, I don't really care what you think. I'm strong. I feel good. I've also Dr. Robin Kutka, who's one of the speakers. She talks about how with her clients, she suggests that they do not get divorced or make any major life decisions. You also, I know, think this until they have the hormones fixed. And I thought, you know what? Now that I've lived through it, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So if you're feeling like, my cat just looked at me.
Like, what's happening? Yeah.
Like I'm not saying take a chill pill, because your feelings are very, very valid, but let's wrap it in, like your famous rappers, let's wrap it in some wisdom and some health and balance.
Yeah, it's funny because I obviously see women primarily, but I jokingly say, yes, we like our token males. They're not tokens, but we end up seeing a lot of times the significant other, brother, family member. And I often find myself explaining to men, I'm like, okay, do you remember when you were 8? He's like, yeah, okay, cool. So your wife, girlfriend, whoever, just hormonally went back to 8 years old. They have no testosterone, they have no estrogen, they have no progesterone. So were you thinking about sex heavily at 8? No, neither is she.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's
right?
very
Because the
good.
physiology of the sex hormones that hit our brain and turn that stuff on is no longer there. And then it interacts with dopamine and all that other stuff. And so and that's a huge part of relationships, right? And if men are getting testosterone, who are they sleeping with?
Let's not talk about it.
Right. So the reality is as we deserve those hormones to not only keep us young and virile and healthy and all those other things, but to have a really incredible sex life, right? That is
Oh,
absolutely something we can have in this time period, and yeah, I agree completely. I think
it
it's
should be,
so very
it should
important.
be lovely. It should be lovely. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So we talk about hair loss in the summit. We talk about the different delivery methods of, what do we got here? Not pills for estrogen, but you got patches, creams. I got a stash right here.
Oils.
Right. You are the queen of the oils. So, we got the patches, you have the cream. By the way, if you're ever using the cream, be sure to take the lid off, and then there's another lid on there. Pop that sucker off, because there's a lot of goodness and a lot of money and cream still stuck in there. So just a heads up on that. But yeah, so just full disclosure, Betty is one of my menopause providers. Like, I have given the woman money to watch over me in my situation, and we're friends. But I met her and I was like, "Hey, will you be in the summit?" And I had like a 20-minute conversation with her. I'm like, "Oh, I will have what you are having. Thank you very much. Will you take me on?" So, just saying, like, and there's some other people on the summit who helped me as well. But I'm just saying, like, she's the real deal. And and also because you use the DNA at the same time. That's what's so fascinating to me, because I have had DNA interpretation that was very confusing, and then I've had it that was very helpful, and I know that I should never have Cipro, and I know that my dopamine's jacked. I'm a warrior. That can be a strength, because it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just the way it's expressed, blah blah blah. And I've seen my older sisters. So this is interesting, right? Because I have case studies before my very eyes, 8 and 9 years older. And I've seen some lifestyle that one does that the other doesn't do, etc. And it's just been really, really interesting. And I wanted to make sure that, based on what I saw in the future, that I was going to do as well, at least, and that I wanted to maximize my possibilities. So the fact that you are an expert in the in DNA as well, and genetics as well, is just such a great combination. So thank you for your work.
Yeah. I mean, that really came out of my desire because I'm adopted. So it was a black box. So I was like, my scientific nerdy mind is like, I must know. I can't tell.
Right.
And so I've done every DNA test out there, including a full genome sequence. And,
Wow.
and it's not necessarily a guarantee. The epigenetics are what drive real situations, real healthcare things. But it does give us an idea of what you're wired for and where, we need to put guardrails up. I think it's so important. And particularly when it comes around to hormone metabolism, how the body really operates. Because that's what really drove me in my research. I looked primarily at how we metabolize hormones in the microbiome, and specifically IBS, because it was something I could study. Anybody that's ever done a PhD, you're like, how do I get through this thing quickly and quit paying?
Yeah.
Right. But a big part of what I was looking at too was what didn't make sense was the risk for breast cancer goes up postmenopausally when we have no hormones. Right.
Yeah.
Your estrogen's gone. But the risk is exponentially higher, right? The average age of diagnosis is 63. It's not a young woman's disease. Yes, we do have young women that get it. And I was like, but that doesn't make sense because our estrogen is protective. And so what is it? And so I think a lot of it is this uncovering of how we metabolize things and the toxins going through there. Not your estrogen, not the bioidentical estrogen you might be taking, but how you process other toxins, which
Right.
are 90% of what's out there is endocrine disrupting. And that's where I want to dig in from a nerdy standpoint and dig more. And I just think, medicine tends to overlook that because they don't want to do the deep dive of understanding that because we don't have a drug for it yet.
I'm with you. 100%. So everybody's invited. It is free. The New Science and Wisdom of Menopause Summit is free from February 24th to March 3rd, 2025. And every day there are 10 speakers. So it ended up being ultimately 70 presentations, between the juicy interviews and the 2-pack you gave, etc. So it's 10 presentations each day. After the first day, 10 a.m. it starts. Next day, 10 a.m. Those go away, and you get the second set, and so on through the 7 days. And if you want to buy it so you can own it and, have it and look at it, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. I say even come for like 15 minutes a day and poke around, because all 10 are released at the same time, and see what's going on. Also, the fact that it's evidence-based and there are studies. But I said to everybody, look, obviously, just because there isn't a study doesn't mean your clinical experience is invalid. Of course not. I want to know it all.
Yeah.
Cram as much in there as possible so we can really take action and transform from the presentations. So that's what it's all about. Join us.
I'm super excited because, like I said, I know quite a few of the people that are on your summit. And so I'm like, yeah, they're cream of the crop, definitely people you want to hear. And there's, like you said, a lot of people that may not be, huge influencers online, but are hugely influential in this business because they actually have been really helping people day to day in a clinic somewhere.
Exactly.
So that's exciting. And so we'll make sure in the show notes that you have access to the code to register, and so you can get access to all the goodies, not only the presentations, but the earlier you register, the more you are potentially going to get fun things from the speakers and stuff. So you want all the freebies that go along with it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You want to get all the bennies.
Yeah, for sure. And you get access to 3 of the videos immediately, so that like wet your whistle, take some action, get primed and ready. Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah. So everybody, go look at the show notes and we'll have access to it there. I will also have it on our social media channels, but you'll have access through a link where you can sign up for the summit for free and then get all the bennies and then see all those speakers in February. So thank you, Siobhan, for taking time. I know your schedule has been absolutely crazy.
Bonkers. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And then we'll be back together next week on Menopause Mastery. Thank you so much for listening.